everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Kenya Youth Summit. We are so excited to have you all join us. My name is the one, the only, Dr. Elizabeth Bashira, co-founder of the Youth Engagement Society and a queen living her best life as I work to engage and empower youth, one conversation at a time, one idea at a time, and one fashion moment at a time. We are here August 2021. The past 15 months have been both challenging and humbling. As we navigate the current COVID-19 pandemic and reevaluate how we live, work, worship, and play, there is a conversation that is needing to be had on how we can transform and come up with innovative ideas. Every sector, we can all agree, has been affected. And now more than ever, a conversation on how we, as young people, as organizations, whether at the grassroots or global, we must pivot. We pivot and make sure that our missions and purpose remain the same. But we talk about ways to transform processes as we continue to do relevant work in this day and age. I'm excited to kick off today's first session and set the stage for our panelists and the conversation. And I have read those bios and I am amazed, right? I mean, I've connected with each and every one of those on LinkedIn just because of who they are. Now, pre-COVID, we would be gathering somewhere in Kenya with a cup of tea and a notebook on hand. But alas, I am here on your screen. Maybe it's a phone screen, a computer screen. And we at Yes have had to pivot. Having this virtual summit is evidence of that pivot. But our objective remains unchanged: to engage, to inspire and empower youth, to facilitate conversations by bringing together youth, young professionals, leaders and organizations to the forefront of issues that impact you and I. Issues that, if we don't tackle, impact our aunties, our uncles, our grandparents, our very selves, our very today, and our tomorrow. And facilitate collaboration. We must work together. It is no longer time to be siloed and worked by yourself. No man is an island, okay? And we have to collaborate across sectors to not only inspire youth, but to tap into them for solutions. It's not enough to have a conversation where a motivational speaker comes in here, pumps you up, and tomorrow you wake up knowing a little bit more, but that's it. We must tap into our own expertise, into our own ideas, and organizations must say yes. Youth engaged societies for solutions. Hopefully, my friends, you joined yesterday's conversation, but if you didn't, it's all right, it's okay, it's okay. The beauty of this virtual summit is everything is archived. You can also find last year's on the Yes page, and you can tap into the conversation yesterday, and if you missed it, you want to get into that. Now, my job is not to sit here and just talk. It's to open the door and allow you to walk in to today's session. Remember, I wish we'll be somewhere together, holding a cup of tea and our notebooks and talking. But here we are. We will make the best of this youth summit and hope and plan for a time when we'll be able to gather together. So let me set the stage. We have 2 panels where we will be discussing Networking 101. You know that is an important conversation. How do we collaborate unless we reach out and talk to other people and find synergy on the way for us to connect and continue doing our work, but also doing it together without duplicating efforts. We will be discussing Networking 101 and youth in underrepresented sectors, STEM and agribusiness. If you have any questions on these topics, please leave them in the chat because we will be going in there to curate those and have them answered during our live Q&A session. Now, I will be at that live session and I will make sure as your friend that I ask those asking for a friend questions. So no question is irrelevant. And realistically, we will work to curate those in a way that maybe when a question is asked one time, it answers 4, 5, or 6 of the questions that you answered. So our first panel session will discuss the topic of youth in underrepresented sectors, STEM and agribusiness. Agribusiness can provide jobs for young people and help African countries achieve the development goals that we are working towards. The future of youth in STEM and agriculture can be realized through making agriculture both profitable and cool for young people. I mean, we need influencers that are on Instagram, okay, on TikTok, on Snapchat, rewriting the narrative on agriculture. We must eat, all of us. We must eat and drink. So this is an important topic, and food insecurity is an issue and continues to be an issue, but we must come together, talk about it, and tackle it in a way that is both transformative and innovative as we proceed. Merging technology and food science together, showcasing individuals and organizations that have disrupted this field. Our panelists will tackle questions on how we as youth can contribute to the ongoing conversations about us in agriculture and STEM, as well as discuss challenges and success stories, because it's important to talk about the issue at hand, but it's just as important to be real and talk about the challenges we will face in these sectors. But as we do that, we are thinking and sharing solutions on the way forward. So how do we make agriculture cool? Do we need my friend Idris Elba to do so, to come here with his London accent and say, hey guys, agriculture is cool? When you think of Afrobeats, what do you think of? Something boring or something cool? When you think of agriculture, what do you see or think of? Something boring or something cool? Something our grandparents did or something that we are doing now? I want you to think on that as we dive into this conversation. Our panelists are amazing and they work in various STEM fields. These are underrepresented for young people. So young people, we gotta show up. If we have the talent, if we have the intellect, if we have the capacity, let us line up and network with these individuals to find out how they got there, what did they have to face, what are some ideas, and let us disrupt this field. So grab your pen and paper and get ready to learn. Remember, use the chat section to log your questions as the session continues, and I hope to see you at the live Q&A. Also, be a friend. Be a friend. Share this link with somebody. Share the flyer with 2 people. You never know. They may not need it, but they may know somebody that needs it. So be a friend. And let's dive in.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Felix Kimani Kariuki. I'm the Programs Director at Program for Capacity Development in Africa. And it's an honor to be here to be able to address an issue that has to do with youth and agriculture. I've been working in the SME for about 14 years. And so this is a passion for me, agriculture it is. And so I'd like to address some of the questions that have been provided on this day for me. Question number 1 is, why are some sectors not attractive to youth? Example, the agribusiness. I totally believe that the challenge has been from the word go. Whatever is taught in schools concerning agriculture is more of an art, more of a social aspect than an agribusiness aspect. Even though agriculture forms the backbone of the continent in Africa and other many developing countries, you find that the way it's taught as a way of a pastime, something you can do when you have nothing else better to do. And that is unfortunate. If we could adopt agriculture being taught as an agribusiness, I totally believe the results would be different. And this ought to be what's supposed to be the case. Um, when agriculture is taught as a business, various aspects come into play. For example, what to sell, how to produce, and all these things are not addressed uh, when it's taught in schools, especially from the primary level to the secondary level. You're taught livestock, this is the form of livestock. You're taught about crops, this is a form of crops. But there's more to agriculture when you teach as an agribusiness. There's a marketing aspect, the supply aspect, the science that goes into production, which is not addressed when it's being taught. And therefore, there's no interest whatsoever because it seems to be dull. It seems to be old, same old. And it seems to be lacking the dynamism that it has when it's taught as an agribusiness. A lot goes into agriculture. There's the export, there's the import. And so these are the aspects that are not addressed when it's being taught in school. And I totally believe if this can be done, there can be a big difference in the uptake of agriculture and agribusiness by the youth. Another issue altogether is that agriculture in Africa, developing countries, is attributed to poverty. Most of the people who grew up in communities that do farming associate agriculture to, or rather farming to poverty as a result of what they've seen their parents go through, their relatives going through, as a result of being part of the narrative in those families that dwelt or rather depended so much in agriculture. Um, it is unfortunate that yes, agriculture is the backbone of this country, but you find farmers truly the poorest. The people who really profit from it are the middlemen. You find like a cup of coffee might cost maybe $25, $15, $10, but this percentage that trickles down to a farmer is way less than 1%. And this is unfortunate. And therefore, you find that farmers have loans to pay, especially in the cash crops, coffee, tea. It's always been an issue, and so I believe these are areas that, if they could be addressed from a perspective of agriculture and such kind of aspects being taught as an agribusiness from an earlier age, then these are issues that can be tackled easily and also create an interest in the youth. You find also the kind of agriculture that the youth are rather accustomed to seeing is the old traditional agriculture, which lacks the precision it requires to have in order for quality production to be possible. You find that agriculture still use, or rather farmers still use the same old methods of raising livestock, of growing crops. And you find that it's unsustainable because usually you find the kind of farming that is done, the soils end up losing the nutrients and therefore the quality goes down. And therefore, when it comes to standardization of such kind of production for export purposes, they fall below par. So these are some of the attributes that need to be addressed. And teaching agriculture and agribusiness, I totally believe there'll be so much more engagement in terms of the youth applying the knowledge they gain in school to be able to apply it in the farms, because you find that the people who do farming are 60 years and above, and the people who own the land also 60 years and above. And therefore, you find that the youth don't find a space to be able to practice the knowledge that they do have. And on this, I'm speaking about especially those that do degrees, follow up on degrees in agriculture. And in fact, the numbers have been dwindling down in terms of those that take agriculture as a degree course. And reason behind it is because of that lack of economic empowerment. It's not visible. And in this time and age, and especially with the youth, money is key to them developing themselves. And whatever is not producing, whatever is not putting money in their pocket, they have no interest in it. And wherever they cannot apply the knowledge they have gained in school, they have no space for it. They have no interest in it. And therefore, engaging technology, because agriculture has different components. There's a business aspect, there's a technology aspect, there's a science aspect, there's a research aspect. So a lot plays into it. It's just an issue of basically structures, frameworks that are in place are not advocating for that science to be utilized, to be capitalized on. And so that's the challenge that basically is pretty much pushing the youth away from agriculture. And it's a sad affair because right now the generation gap in the agriculture space is quite large. The population is supposed to double by the year 2050, 2060. And also the demand for food is supposed to skyrocket to 60% demand for it. Therefore, by not addressing the generation gap, that is those who are engaging in agriculture, we are looking at a shortage of food and also nutritious food. So we need a lot needs to be done in this space in order to be able to engage. But it's just an issue of making it attractive to them, uh, using their knowledge, because they have so much knowledge they can use, and also by teaching them from an earlier age to treat agriculture as an agribusiness, it's going to make a big difference, a big difference in the output. Now, number two, how can we improve youth involvement in agribusiness? I think I've touched upon that. Basically, how to improve youth involvement is basically by engaging them from an earlier age, and also creating the space in such a way that they are able to use their knowledge to be able to grow that sector. Because you find that in most of the decision making areas, or rather offices or corridors, they're not present. So you find that since they're not present, then their voice is not heard. And because their voice is not heard, then they become disengaged. So you find that some of the policies are not pulling them in the space. And so they lack interest in it. They don't see why they should engage themselves in it, yet they do have the knowledge, they do have the capability to be able to introduce innovations in systems, in the framework that would make a difference. So by how the question was, how can we improve youth involvement in agribusiness? So that's just an addition to what I had said initially, basically. Also aspects of land ownership. You find that most of the people who own land are 60 years plus. So most of the people who do farming are 60 years plus. So if policies can be put in place whereby they can be able to have ownership of land, also rent land, because you find that we do have some traditions in Africa, especially where women are concerned, that there's that gender bias, the aspect of that you find cultures don't allow women to own land. So that becomes an issue altogether. At Program for Capacity Development in Africa, we have a system called the Gender Action Learning System that we integrated into something called Transformation Action Learning System, whereby we deal with communities to be able to address such kind of challenges in such a way that women become part of the conversation on the table. And so we handle those challenges from a household level in such a way that everybody has a part to play by creating a vision that pretty much is geared towards building one community. And our goal has been one product, one village. And for that to become possible, then there has to be the issue of everybody playing a part, everyone being engaged and involved in the creation of such. So those are some of the challenges that definitely need to be addressed. And it's just a matter of time. Some traditions are dying off slowly. There's been a lot of campaign on gender action. And so I do foresee a lot of changes taking place as a result of also what I've been able to experience through P4CDA. And so that's just some of the challenges, and that's one of the reasons as to why you find also youth are not engaged, because of that gender issue, gender bias, lack of equity, lack of say, lack of voice. And so by pulling them in, the society is better off in many ways. What are the key challenges and risks of investing in agribusiness? What are the key challenges and risks of investing in agribusiness? Challenges, you have to know what kind of farming you want to do. And every form of farming has a challenge to it. But what should be the driver is that you should understand the market. Where's the market? Is there a market for that product? Once you understand if there's a market, then you have to go back and say, so what do I need to do to be able to produce what is needed in the market? Once you're able to identify that, then because that's where the challenges are. Because you find that somebody wants to farm watermelon, but they don't have the knowledge to farm watermelon. Because the reason behind it is because we also have a deficiency when it comes to extension services, especially in developing countries. And so somebody has to dig information, somebody has to seek information, somebody has to look for the training that deals with that kind of product for them to be able to farm it successfully. So there's that lack of knowledge that does exist because of the deficiency of extension services. So the key challenge is to know that there's that need for knowledge that you have to acquire. There's the basic knowledge, there's the specialized knowledge. So the specialized knowledge, it all goes with the kind of product that you want to grow. The conditions, are the land. What do you need for this to become a success? You want to grow potatoes. What kind of potatoes? What kind of challenges? What kind of pests? What kind of diseases are you to expect? What's the history of such kind of a product being grown in the area that you're planning or you want to grow? So knowledge is important to have. So that's a key challenge. So the risks that you're looking at when you're investing in agribusiness basically is if you don't have the right knowledge, because what happens is agriculture is dynamic. You find that the pests and the diseases that attacked last year, they're different. You find that than the ones that are attacking right now. You find that the condition of the soil that was there last year or 2 years ago is different from what you're facing right now. You find that there's that climate change aspect also, weather is becoming more unpredictable. And so these are issues that do affect investing. These are the risks that you look at. Also issues of the market being flooded. Are you trying to grow something or to raise something in a market that is saturated? So remember what you're thinking of. Somebody else has thought about it. Somebody else is thinking about it. So you have to be as dynamic as the market is when it comes to agriculture. There's no question about it. You just have to be. The pandemic has affected it in so many ways. There was a lockdown in so many areas as a result of the pandemic. So there was that people looking within themselves, or rather countries, regions looking within to be able to meet the need and the demand that was there for certain products. So there's a positive aspect of it. And the positive is that now there's that need to be able to pretty much make use of the resources that are available in order to be able to meet the need. So it was positive. It definitely it was, because now we could maximize on, okay, in this village, in this community, what can we do to meet the supply, or rather to supply, or rather to meet the demand. So you find that one community, they're always growing bananas, but now they're diversifying to other horticultural products to meet the demand within, and also be able to sell to other closer regions because flights were being locked down. There's a positive aspect that came with the lockdown, with the pandemic. Definitely, agriculture was affected greatly when it comes to now receiving inputs that are needed to do this kind of farming, because time is an issue. You find when it comes to exporting, when it comes to importing, there's always a shelf life to products. So definitely, the looking in within did create the need for cottage industries. You could find that businesses grew out of that. There's no question about it, which was good. You find that people who never used to do farming started engaging in farming, which was good. You could find a lawyer doing something extra, because they have a piece of land to be able to meet either just, family supply, or just to meet the demand in that community, because other business were also affected. So agriculture became, it was seen now as vital as it is, as important as it is. And so There was a growth in hydroponics farming because if you don't own land but you have some space and you're able to grow through by using water and technology. That grew a lot. There was that aspect. So every space became more like space that you can be able to do farming. You could see people growing vegetables in balconies around their homesteads. Kitchen gardens grew up. There's vertical farming that came up as a result of trying to capitalize on the little space that you have in order to be able to grow something, to be able to feed yourself. So there was a growth in that sector of in that area of people looking within themselves to see what can I do with the space that I have. How can I? Because agriculture now it started looking cool to some level. So it did. So the pandemic did play some positive, some positive aspect of agriculture. Became evident, and so that's something good that happened as far as that is concerned. What tips would you give to a youth who wants to start an agribusiness? What tips would you give to a youth who wants to start an agribusiness? Know what you want. Know the market. It's important to know the market. I know in Kenya, for example, the government always puts out a list of the quotas that need to be met in order to meet the food demand within the country and also to meet the demand for export. So some of this data is important to be able to source from the government, which the government does avail freely. And so when you look into that, and also county governments, they do give out a list of what the county is looking to be able to produce to a certain quota. And as far as Kenya is concerned, I know there's so many quotas we haven't been able to reach, even in the production of maize. You'd think that maize is we've surpassed the limits, but we are way below the quota we are supposed to produce in order to meet the internal need. So it's good to source information from governments, Ministry of Agriculture. They do avail such kind of information. So once you source, once you know what kind of product, then source the knowledge information on how to be able to either grow or to rear such kind of animals as need be in order to meet the market need. So knowledge is important to source as much as you can. We do have forums that do share, where people do share. There's that peer-to-peer. And also we do have training programs at universities. Even those that have farms, they do offer training at some places for free, some for a small fee. And then we have open platforms whereby you can be able to source freely. Organizations like FAO, they do have platforms where you can be able to source information. And these are the platforms that basically they're good to use, capitalize on. We're living in an age where information has been made easily accessible, and also it's easily affordable. So YouTube is there. You can always source information from YouTube. YouTube pretty much is another whole different university whereby you can learn anything you want to. So source as much information as possible in terms of how to be able to produce what you want to produce to meet the market need. Remember, market is what should drive the kind of farming you want to be able to practice. The market should demand from you in terms of pretty much what kind of produce you want to supply to the society or to the community. Let the market guide you. The other aspect to look into is capital is always an issue that is raised as far as people not practicing something, an agribusiness. But I always say, and it always works, and I've seen it, start small. Start small. Wherever you can find some small space, make use of it. Find what you can produce in that little space, in that small space, maximize on it. Instead of keeping a cow, why don't you keep a goat? Instead of, if you can't keep a goat, you can keep some chicken, get some eggs. So my point is, start small. Wherever you are, there's something you can do. Whatever space, we have vertical farming, which doesn't require a lot of space. And it's also not as expensive as hydroponics if you don't have a piece of land. So start small. Don't try and go big if finances. When it comes to finances, finances, if you're looking for capital, look for capital to scale what you've already started successfully. What are your 3 takeaways for every youth listening in? Your 3 takeaways. First and foremost, nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. The other aspect also is wherever you are, whatever little knowledge you have, because much of progress, much of growth is nothing but what you can call common sense, as in 1 + 1 = 2. And it's by following those small baby steps that you grow. It's by perfecting those small baby steps that you'll be able to reach the heights that you want to reach. So start small. Clarity is important. Setting goals is important. Identifying your strengths and weaknesses is important. Um, and then starting off. Put your leg in the water. Put your leg. You'll never know how to swim unless you get into the water. You can't learn how to swim on land. You have to be in water to know how to swim. So, and you cannot know how to walk unless you stand. So you cannot. It's an issue of start the motion. If you're crawling, at some point you'll want to stand, and when you stand, at some point you'll want to walk, and when you start walking, at some point you'll want to run, and eventually, I'm sure you'll want to know how to fly. But even though you can't fly, you might, at least you'll get into a plane and fly. So my point is, get in motion. Start somewhere. Get in motion. Start somewhere. Get in motion. As you move, then perfection comes in. As you move, perfection. So just have it clear what you want. Look at the challenges. Look at the liabilities, and remember, you have a big vision, but remember, you have to start as a seed. You have to start small. You have to start with what you're able to work with, whatever is available to you as a resource. That's what you have to work with. You cannot work with what you don't have. And the interesting aspect is you'll always have more than enough to start with, because it's all in an idea, it's all in a thought, it's all in a resource that you didn't identify initially. But because now there's an interest, you'll be able to see it because the vision is clear. When the vision is clear, you'll always see that doors always appear that you can walk through. And once you start achieving the success, you'll find the kind of support that you need to scale your work. So start small. Don't be scared. Start walking. Eventually, you'll start flying. So thank you for your time, and I hope the information has been helpful to you. Cheers.
My name is Eric Mukaya. I've been a student at the Stockholm School of Economics in Sweden. I'm a founder of Mwango Capital, and I'll be an analyst at Klarna from October. Some of the challenges that students face and how they can overcome. I think one of the biggest challenges is funding and money for going through school. Some of the students don't have money that they can use to be able to pay for their school fees, so they need help in that regard. So I think I've also gone in my high school. I needed someone came up and actually paid my entire 4 years of school, which also enabled me to be where I am today. I think that's what is needed more and more. People maybe contributing resources so that young people can be able to get into these roles. So I think something else, another challenge could be also lack of mentors. I think some of the people who've made it in this field need to go back maybe to their schools and be able to challenge and show them how it can be done easily. And I think why pursue STEM education advantages is because I think tech is on the cutting edge of life these days. I think yesterday I was listening to one podcast that talks about space technology and traveling to space. One of the things that he said, the speaker, was that to get to space, you need everyone involved. People from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, all of them need to be involved in getting people to space, like Jeff Bezos and all. So if this is going to be a reality, then we need everyone involved, and especially the STEM subject. So I think then we have many challenges, and some of the challenges need to be overcome by people engaging in STEM. Success stories you can share about a student pursuing STEM education. I don't have that many, but one of them that I've seen is someone I know who works at Microsoft and has worked really hard to get there. He's a Kenyan, and I think I was actually reading his story today. So I think he worked very hard from Kenya and was able to get to the US, and now he works at Microsoft as an engineer there. So I think that's a success story, and it's all down to really hard work. You have to work very, very hard, put in a lot of hours, and work harder than the person next to you. And key takeaways for every student listening in, I think one is work really hard. Put up the hours. I think wake up earlier than others and put in as many hours as possible. So I think two, reach out to people who can also mentor you and learn from them. There are very many people out there who can be able to guide you in your area of interest. Reach out, don't be scared. The worst they can do is say no. I think above all else, dedicate yourself to everything that you're supposed to do and put God first in everything that you do. That's very important too. I think those are the questions I had. So my encouragement to you is to really work hard and to keep going at it and reach out for mentorship opportunities and just be the best you can be. Thank you so much for today and be blessed.
Hi everyone, my name is Jace Pondo and I am co-founder at the Edelina Company. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us on today's session. There's a lot of talented and experienced panelists speaking today, and so I hope that as you walk away, you bring a lot of added value to your learning journey. To give you some background on myself, at the Edelina Company, we primarily focus on B2B sales of leather hides and direct-to-consumer sales of finished leather goods. Outside of the Edelina Company, I'm also getting my bachelor's in International Business Administration at Montpellier Business School in France. So when we ask the question, how do we get youth more involved in STEM? I really think that there's two primary components to this. And those two components are the professional side and the youth side of it. On the professional side, it more so has to do of communicating with the youth properly about what's going to be required of them as far as STEM goes when they enter a professional setting. This really interlinks with the question of why is it valuable for a youth to pursue STEM education? And I think if professionals can be very transparent, really just frank with youth about the technical backgrounds, the engineering backgrounds, the mathematical, the science backgrounds that are going to be required of them in any given field. I think that's going to bring a lot more attention to STEM in and of itself. And I'll elaborate how so here in a moment. And so on the other hand, we have the youth side of this. And really what that comes down to for the youth is asking the proper questions, or not even, let's take it a step back, taking the time to ask questions of professionals in your desired career field. A lot of youth like to, dream, and I'm speaking for myself on this. We'd like to, dream about a certain field that we want to go to and romanticize it. But really what needs to be done in order to, engage more youth in STEM is for the youth themselves to ask, if I want to go into this specific field, what are the technical requirements for entering that field? What do I need to push myself to learn right now? What should I pursue in STEM so that I can be competent and excel in that field? And so when we bring these two together, what you'll find is that, one, the youth are better informed because of the professionals. The youth are better informed of what they need to pursue skill-wise. They'll be more apt to pursue STEM fields, knowing that their dream career requires that of them. And then youth, also, just by taking the time to ask, that wrangles you in a bit more, because either it can push you on to another career field where, you say, maybe that technical aspect isn't for me. I'm more into the engineering side. I don't want to deal with code. I want to do engineering or science. And so I think putting those two together, having both sides, professionals and youth, really engage this is what's going to get youth more involved. And so I'll give you a concrete example of this. And this is back when I was in Form 4. I really wanted to go into quantitative asset management, but I didn't know what was going to be required of me to go into that. In fact, up until that point, I had been really interested in investing, but in my mind, it was just doing basic balance sheet analysis, telling people this is the security that I want to purchase, speaking with investment clients, some basic investment banking things, and then I could move on and I wouldn't have to worry about anything else outside of finance. But what you'll find is whenever I started looking deep into quantitative asset management, I realized it's not just a purely finance field. This is very much a technical field. And so what I did was I reached out to a quant manager and I told him, I'm about to graduate Form 4. I'm going into my university studies, but I'm having a difficult time, choosing what am I going to study? Should I go to business school for this with a focus on finance? Should I go to business school to focus on accounting? And so he told me, he's like, you know what? A lot of those things you can teach yourself, or you've shown that you've already taught them yourself. What you really need to do is learn these coding languages if you want to get into quant specifically. You need to have these mathematical skills. And then afterwards, once you do that, use your business experience to back it, because here's some additional soft skills that you're going to need on top of those hard technical skills. And so what happened there was a really good example of what I said, is these two components of a professional one being honest and frank with a youth about what is going to be required of them, how the industry is evolving, and the youth taking the time to ask the right questions to engage professionals in the field that they want to enter someday, so that you can get good answers. And so I really think that having those two sides work together in such a way is what's going to get youth more engaged in STEM. So on the question of how do we mitigate the gender gap in STEM, I think the best way for me to tackle this question, especially as a young male, is to go about it anecdotally, specifically in the story of me with my sisters that I grew up with. I have two younger sisters back in Texas. And so, I grew up alongside my sisters. And while we weren't specifically narrowed in on, STEM careers, each of us, I knew that going into any professional context, that there was going to be a gap between, the momentum we had going in. And I was going to err on the competitive advantage of that, because that's the unfortunate way in which the gender gap has leaned. And so when I looked at that, I knew instantaneously, as a brother to these two sisters, that my responsibility, that my role in this conflict of a gender gap was to figure out my points of competitive advantage and use them as leverage to empower my sisters. When I looked at this, I did not place, the responsibility of, outperforming and stuff on my sisters simply because a gender gap existed that they had no control over. Instead, what I had to do was break this down to first principles and say, where do I stand in this issue? I'm on the side that has an unfortunate advantage. How can I use that for good? What responsibility does that, entail for me? What role does that put me in? And so I think asking this question, I'm specifically saying this to, especially young men, take a look around you, at the woman around you, and ask, do I have some type of unfair competitive advantage because of this gender gap? And if so, where specifically, how can I narrow down these advantages specifically? And how do I use them as leverage to empower these women around me? Because ultimately, there's no universal law that says that we deserve equal access to outcome, but we do all need to have that equal access to opportunity. And so really, especially, again, speaking to the young men, because I am one myself, understand that responsibility that you have. Understand the role that you're going to play now because of this. This is incredibly hard for me to speak of to professionals, because I'm still quite young myself. But definitely understand the responsibility that you have as a young man. Understand the role that you should play, and use that to empower women around you. And I think that's one of the most basic, first step ways that we can start mitigating this gender gap that exists in STEM currently. So as we wrap up, I would say 3 key takeaways for me are, 1, If you're choosing to enter the STEM field, or really in any field whatsoever, go into that field understanding the conflicts or the problems that exist in it, and being willing to take on the responsibility of solving those conflicts or issues. Go in there with skin in the game. As we had talked about, with mitigating the gender gap. If you're a young man, young woman, a professional, male or female, go in aware of this issue and being willing to take on the responsibility of, being one of the resolving parties of it. Go in willing to have the responsibility of becoming the solution to that problem. As another key takeaway that I would say for sure is, when we talked about STEM and biotech now with Moderna, when we talked about STEM in the context of a startup, one of the biggest things that you can look at there was just having this hard skill that could translate across business boundaries, across career boundaries, social boundaries, and so forth. And so I think that's one thing, if I can, advise anything on the second takeaway, is just equip yourself with some sort of STEM skill. Whether it's, your primary university studies are all STEM related, or whether your studies have nothing to do with a STEM, integrate it then into your self-teachings, into your self-learnings. Let your curiosity drag you into whatever corner of STEM most fascinates you. But equip yourself with it, because truly it has so much to benefit, whether you're a scientist or whether you're the artist. It has so much to equip creators with just across the board. And so that's one of my other takeaways is, take the time to equip yourself with a skill set that's related to STEM. And lastly, I think a closing takeaway that I would say for this is to let your curiosity carry you in your STEM pursuits. And what I mean by this is there's a good article, and I'll also link to this in the building blocks for this session, and it's called The Bus Ticket Theory. And turns out that there's actually a group of people who collect bus tickets. For them, it's not about the financial gain of it. It's not about the popularity. It's purely about the interest. And because of that, they can tell the difference between two bus tickets that nobody else would ever notice, because that is their corner of fascination. And not to step on the bus ticket collector's shoes too much, but bus ticket collecting doesn't have much use for the rest of the world. This is very much a personal benefit thing. And so when it comes to the context of STEM, if you can find something that fascinates you so much as collecting bus tickets, but at the same time is helpful for the communities, for the people, for the world around you, find that intersection of those two things. Find something that absolutely fascinates you in STEM, and find something that does good for the world around you, and let that carry you. When you pursue STEM simply because you have to, or because somebody told you to, it's less likely to become as fruitful. But if you can find that healthy balance of something that's fascinating and helpful and useful, you can go so far with that curiosity. And so, that would be my final third takeaway for this session.
Hello. So before I even start, I want to say a big thank you to the YES team for inviting me to this panel. It is truly my privilege to be here and to serve alongside all of these other distinguished panelists. So I guess at this point I should introduce myself. So my name is Grace Kago, and I am a graduate student doing my degree in cell and molecular biology. My academic journey started with an undergraduate degree in biology, and then I got a minor in art history, and then I worked for a little bit. Well, actually, I worked for a very long time, and then I decided I wanted to pursue a doctorate in cell and molecular biology, and that is what I'm working on right now. I've been invited here to talk to you about STEM education and about STEM in general and about how we can include more youth in STEM subjects. So I'll focus on that for today. Why do students leave STEM majors? Talk a little bit about depression and STEM. So in my experience, I would say that depression actually affects many people. I think it's a perfectly normal response to the chaos and unpredictability of life. However, as it pertains specifically to STEM education, I guess let me go ahead and break it down into two kind of segments. First, I'll talk about this issue at the undergrad level, and then I will talk about the same issue at the grad level. So at the undergrad level, some of the stressors that I think might result in poor mental health and to diseases like depression include the fact that many of these STEM degrees tend to be pretty isolated. And because of that, students will often not spend time curating and creating communities in which they can thrive. And so because of this, whenever they're dealing with pretty normal issues, they don't have any support at all. And that can really lead to just disillusionment and just feelings of aloneness and isolation. And so in order to combat that, I recommend that for all students who are undertaking really all degrees, to spend time curating their communities so that they're able to find spaces of support to help them navigate their specific field or sort of training. Another difficulty that I think I've heard at the graduate level includes the situations where maybe you're comparing yourself with other people. And so it is very easy to compare yourself, especially in a degree program where the metrics of success are pretty universal, right? Because we're told we need to publish, we're told we need to go and present at conferences, we're told that we need to have the best data and the most innovative data all the time. In real life, your PhD is very different from that of your lab mates and in that of your peers. Or it's different from that of your lab mates, different from that of your peers. So I encourage you not to compare yourself to other people because your path is unique. And I think that will make your life a little bit easier because then you won't be trying to hold yourself to standards that other people are, living through. Because you really can't, you don't know what someone else is dealing with. You don't know what type of project someone else has. You don't know what other people have done to get where they're, you really just, honestly, you don't know. And so it's not a good use of your time to compare yourself. And honestly, it'll take a lot of stress off of you because then you can just focus on your own work. You can focus on doing well in your own lane. And then you can focus on finishing your own degree, finishing your PhD, finishing your master's, and just staying in your own lane. Why pursue STEM education? What are some advantages? I think honestly for this question, I have the most basic answer. I think my answer honestly will just be that it's a lot of fun. It allows you a lot of opportunity to be innovative and to create novel solutions to problems. So I know whenever we think about STEM, we don't usually think about creativity and, originality really. We usually just think of this very regimented, rigid way of study. But in actuality, many STEM fields are very creative because when you really think about it, we are trying to understand the natural world, which is so amazingly creative and just so incredibly diverse in the way that it represents itself. And so I definitely think that STEM education allows for a lot of creativity and a lot of innovation and is really just an adventure, to be quite serious. I think every single facet of STEM education is an adventure, and so that's why I think you should pursue it. But then to be quite serious, the real reason why you should pursue a degree in STEM is simply if you want to and if you're interested in it. That is the reason that you should pursue a degree in STEM. Lastly, some advantages I think about STEM degrees are probably that, first of all, they're fun. And then maybe I would say that there are many professions that value the ingenuity that comes with many STEM students and with many STEM graduates. And so I think for many people, they're able to get a degree in STEM and then they can pivot to do something else. And so I think that the STEM degree does a pretty good job at facilitating, I don't know, would we call it horizontal transfer, from job A to job B? I think STEM degrees allow you to do that a little bit more than others. I think you definitely have quite some flexibility. I think it's easier to transfer from a STEM degree to something else than vice versa. So yeah, I think that those are maybe my key reasons why you should pursue STEM education. But again, I think my key reason for why you should pursue STEM education is if you love it, if you're passionate, if you are interested in it. What are 3 takeaways for every youth listening into this conversation? I think my 3 takeaways for you today are gonna be, number 1, spend some time thinking about what truly interests you. And so I don't mean to just sit there and then wait for it to hit you. I mean for you to spend time having conversations with people in different fields. Spend some time listening to and reading about other people's stories and other people's journeys. And most importantly, spend some time thinking about what values you hold and what type of impact you might want to make in this world. And I think taken together, that'll really help you to think about what type of career might be best for you and what type of interests might be best for you. And I will also say, whenever you're having this type of conversation, I encourage you to think about the place where your interests, your passions, and your current resources intersect. What that means is that you're kind of going to have to work with what you have right now. And I want to stress the what you have right now part, because that changes. And this whole process is iterative, meaning it can change and you can evolve and you can grow. So I encourage you to start with what you have. Spend time thinking about where you might want to go, what type of resources you have, what people are around you right now, and how you can use all of those things to chart a specific future and to chart specific goals. I encourage you to spend time, again, really thinking and digging, because really you're the person that will make that determination for yourself. So I encourage you to spend time doing that. Thing number 2. So I once read an article that actually said, instead of asking youth, what do you want to be when you grow up? You should ask youth, which problem do you wish to solve? And so today I ask you, which problem do you think that you would like to solve? And then my third thing that I will tell you, which I know is kind of cliche, but I think it's very important for you to take with you, is that you're gonna be your biggest cheerleader. You're gonna be your biggest cheerleader. You're also gonna be your biggest encourager. So today I encourage you to always be kind to yourself. As you grow, as you evolve, as you navigate through life, I encourage you to always be kind to yourself and always cheer yourself on. If you can at least do that, then you will be able to navigate all of the different bumps and crossroads and changes and hills, valleys, everything that you encounter in life, right? And you'll be able to navigate it with grace. You'll be able to really figure out what is true to you and what is true to your community and to your environment. I think that will be really helpful to you as you navigate through your life. So yeah, I think those are my 3 big takeaways for you listening to me today. I hope that this conversation was useful. I hope that it was insightful. And it really was my privilege to sit here and chit chat with you today. I hope I will see you around. Although I guess this is virtual, I will not see you around. I hope that you stay safe and that you have a great rest of the morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whatever time you're listening to this. All right, bye.
Hello everyone. Welcome once again to day 2 of the Kenya Youth Summit. My name is Caroline Kamau and we're so excited to have you here. I hope you all enjoyed the first session where we discussed youth in underrepresented sectors, that is agribusiness and STEM. Remember, if you have any questions, please keep them in on our chat section and we'll be sure to have them answered during the live Q&A session. On our second panel session, we'll discuss the topic Networking 101. Networking offers a wealth of benefits to business owners, freelancers, and students. Through networking, we can leverage the professional community, develop new business opportunities, gain knowledge and skills. Our panelists will tackle questions on how we as youth can make lasting contacts, some of the challenges in networking, and how we can network in the new normal. Over to you, Dorcas.
Thank you, Caroline. Hi everyone, welcome once again to our Networking 101 session. My name is Dorcas Wangare and I am a program officer with the Youth Engagement Society. We are so glad to have you here, and I will get right into the introduction of our panelists for the day. We are honored to have Akili Dada lead this session, and joining us is Diana Njogona, who is the Deputy Program Manager at Akili Dada. She has over 7 years experience working with civil society organizations in the health and criminal justice space. Her passion and expertise is in driving programs that lead to the transformation of systems and culture, and she also has a keen interest in gender equality, social justice, and social impact. So this is just her biography in brief, guys. I mean, her achievements and her experience is quite expansive, and I am super excited to listen in and hear what she has to say about networking. I'd urge you, as always, to leave your questions in the chat box. We will be having our live Q&A session next, and our panelists will be able to tackle all your questions. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in. I'm Diana Njogona and I'm the Deputy Program Manager at Akili Dada. Let me begin by saying how thrilled and excited I am to be a speaker at the 4th edition of the Kenya Youth Summit, talking about Networking 101. It is quite exciting to see the work that the Youth Engagement Society are doing in amplifying the voices of the youth in our country and across the globe. Now, I have a series of questions that I'm meant to answer throughout this video, so do bear with me as I walk along through them. Question number 1. Why is networking so important to job seekers? There's a famous quote by Porter Gale that I'm sure we've all had that says your network is your net worth. Networking is extremely important for anyone, let alone job seekers, to be able to seek employment and to be able to make the connections that might be mutually beneficial to them. There was a study that was done that reported that 80% of job seekers attributed their employment status to networking. Now, this says a lot. Networking would help the job seeker know about upcoming and available positions. It would allow one to be aware of companies' values, culture, and any additional relevant information about the position that they're applying for. By knowing someone, you could even get a referral to the hiring manager, which puts you a step higher and sets you a bar higher, for they'll be able to depict the skills that you bring to the table and what unique selling point that you bring to the table. Remember, networking is a form of self-marketing. It helps you show the world what skills you have, your unique selling point, and what makes you stand apart from every other applicant. So definitely networking does help job seekers. Question number 2. What are the best type of networks for effective networking? Networking is a two-way process. It's not about asking for favors from someone else. It's about mutually creating beneficial relationships. Remember, there are 2 or more people involved. Every contact you meet should lead you to a new contact. That's why it's called networking. Let's think about it like a net. Every connection leads to 2 or more directions when it comes to an actual net. Even in networking, one needs to compartmentalize all networks made, evaluating the mutual benefits for each relationship. One can choose to identify and group them under the following categories. You can have strategic networks, and the purpose of this network is to help figure out the future priorities and the challenges and secure support from them. You can have operational networks. The purpose of this type of network is to get the work done efficiently. And you could also have personal networks. The purpose of this network is to enhance your personal and professional development and to provide referrals to useful contacts. So there are different types of networks that you can have and that you can create, but in summary, the best type of contacts are those that are mutually beneficial to both parties for it to become sustainable. Question number 3. Can one have too many contacts in their networks? Personally, I don't believe you can have too many contacts. I mean, the golden rule to networking, according to Harvard McKay, is networking is simple. Don't keep a score. And I think that summarizes the question. Every connection made could be beneficial at one point or the other, and you'll never know. So yes, keep networking and throwing yourself out there, and keep building and maintaining the connections made. Question number 4. How can I make the most of networking by being a shy person? And can I offer some tips? Now, nerves are the normal way of the body coping, especially when it's thrown into unknown situations or territories. Unfortunately for introverts or shy people, networking doesn't come naturally to them. However, it's not impossible. I believe it's possible for every single person to become great at networking. Personally, I do have a few tips I can share that have worked for me as well, because I'm naturally an introvert, but a lot of my role involves public speaking and interacting and meeting new people. It comes in the territory of program management. My first tip would be, remember there's no one like you, and that's your superpower. What this means is there's no one who can be like you, who can think like you, and that's what you have to offer to the world. My second tip would be read, and I can't emphasize enough, read. One of the easiest ways to use your nerves is if you know in yourself you have enough knowledge to talk about what you're going to speak about and who you're going to meet. This is especially beneficial if you want to gather your nerves, and you can always remember to bounce back questions to the person that you have met. My third would be, if it's difficult to speak to a group of people all at once, identify someone who's standing by themselves or who sat by themselves, and this can help you acclimatize before you interact with a wider group. My fourth would be leverage on your natural human curiosity. Also think of a to-do list or a to-do questions that you can ask when you meet the person. Remember, there's no one on earth who doesn't enjoy talking about themselves, and that's why you have to leverage on the human curiosity. Learn what they brand, what they work on, and ask them things about their business, ask them things about themselves and how they've grown in their career. Also, remember people's names when you meet them. To help with this, repeat their name as you speak to them so it sticks. So for example, if you met someone called Jane today and introduced herself, you then proceed to ask a question to Jane, like, how did you reach to become a program manager? And so on and so forth. This helps you remember the name, which breaks the ice and makes it a bit more personalized when you're having the conversation. Don't let connections die. Make every connection, every hard-won networking connection last. If you enjoyed speaking to someone, make sure the connection keeps going, because you never know. Remember, it's a mutual beneficial interaction. Get their business card, hand over your business card, connect on LinkedIn, and follow up with a connection. Finally, remember to breathe. Everyone has something valuable to add or say into this world. All you need to do is identify your unique selling point and sell it to the world. Question number 5, how can I make a good impression when I meet someone new? Be on time. Know how to present yourself and make sure you're looking the part. Be aware of your body language, how you're sitting, how you're standing. Remember to smile, be yourself, and if you can and the situation allows, do some research about the person you're going to meet, and always have some small talk questions to help break the ice. Question number 6. With the new normal, what are the social media platforms that I should leverage in context of my job search? Operating in the new normal involves a lot more virtual engagement and interactions. Just like the Kenya Youth Summit this year is virtual. This makes it harder to interact with people as you would if it was a physical summit or a physical meeting. However, that does not mean it can't happen. Social media has made everyone become even more interconnected, unlike before. Some of the social media platforms one can use are LinkedIn, which is one of the most worldwide professional social media site, which is usually used for networking. LinkedIn is a great place to strategically position yourself according to your professional background and how you want the world to see the skill sets that you bring to the world professionally. Remember, we're still strategically positioning ourselves with our growing network. You can also use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, despite being more seen as a social-based network. This can help build your brand. For example, if you're trying to become an interior designer, you would craft your pages, you'd craft what you speak about to be more reflective of the brand that you're trying to bring to the table. So you'd reflect your skill sets and your ideas on these social media pages. Here, I believe also most likely Pinterest could be used in this particular line of interior design. Question number 7. What are some of the mistakes people make with online networking or networking in general? I think the first mistake that people make is lack of sufficient knowledge when you're speaking about an opinion or giving a topic or discussion. It's also lack of having a cue, so knowing when to speak, when to talk, and what to talk about, and when to give your opinion about something. Not remembering that it tends to be a mutual beneficial relationship and not sustaining connections that have been made. Don't let connections die. It's one thing to create the connection, it's another one to not sustain it. And then not having knowledge about the connections made whatsoever. Question number 8, what are the 3 takeaways every youth listening in? I think identify your unique selling point and sell it to the world. Always be intentional in growing yourself and expanding yourself. and be willing to jump the deep end and throw yourself into new experiences and places. I really hope this information has been able to help someone out there. And my final advice would be keep throwing yourself out there, keep learning, keep growing your networks. You just never know. But always remember, it's one thing to grow your network, it's another effort to sustain the networks. Thank you very much.